So I'm gonna kick off. We are recording, so we'll have everything up on the SISO website in a few days. So if you've missed it or you want to send it to colleagues, we'll be able to do that. So I'm Liz Irving. I am the CEO of Clarion Events North America, and I also have the pleasure of chairing the SISO Marketing Special Interest Group. So we try to get together every couple of months and share topics that are top of mind with our marketers and our leaders in the event space. And today I'm thrilled to bring to you an amazing session with two of, I think, the smartest people in digital today, Narissa Wild and Max Gabriel, who I think every time I talk with them, they just raise the bar of what is possible. So I hope today you're going to walk away with some really good insights on agents and what's happening in the role of marketing as a whole. So Narissa and Max, why don't you both introduce yourselves and then we'll kick off with an icebreaker.
Go ahead, Max. Oh, I think she was referring to you when she said the smartest person in digital. Max Gabriel, I'm co-founder and CEO at Augmented AI. Our mission is to make marketers' life easier. Narissa?
Hi, everyone. It's good to see so many familiar faces. Narissa Wild. I'm the Chief Digital Officer at Clarion Events North America, working alongside Liz in her team.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, guys, for joining us. So we want to make these as interactive as possible. So I'm going to kick off with an icebreaker and put a question to you guys in the chat. So if you could, and I'm going to hit it right now in chat. We want to first start with talking about things that capture hearts and minds of marketing, because sometimes that's getting lost in the new digital world. So if you could just type a response. So what is a good marketing campaign that you love that captured the hearts and minds of either your teams, your customers, yourself? Would love to hear what you're thinking.
Liz, what about you? While we wait for the response.
I don't know. I was thinking about this too. I'll give you one, actually. So I'll give you one from my own show. We ran ITC last week, and it's for insurance technology. It's a disruption show, right? That's helping change the world of insurance. They had a theme this year called the Wonderland of Possibilities. And to me, that really struck an emotional chord to say, like, there's so much that's possible. When you look through things with different lenses, you take risks, you innovate, right? And think differently. So for me, that was a way to not only win the hearts and minds, but actually make it actionable. And what I thought was best about it was not only how it was showcased and talked about, but throughout the event, our customers leaned into it. Some even dressed up like the Mad Hatter, but they actually made it a way of living, right, of the show that week. So I thought it was fantastic. Oh, Sam, Chick-fil-A and the cows. Yes, that's a great one. Walton Goggins, Google Glasses for GoDaddy. Okay, I don't have to look at that one. The Frenchwoman's football team. Steve Jobs launched the first iPad. Yeah. iPod, yeah. Dove's Real Beauty. Yeah, those are good, right? So they're leading into the emotional side of ways of working. So, what we're kind of seeing today is there are some things that are broken in marketers. We've been on this transformation for a really long time, and now we're spending a lot of time talking about MarTech. So going over to Max and Narissa, why do you think we're sort of moving away from the emotional and sort of thinking side of marketing, moving to more of the MarTech, the data, the technology suite?
Well, shall I start, Narissa? I think my favorite commercial, similar to Ed, was the first time Apple introduced Think Different, which was, I think, first time aired in 1997, is when Steve Jobs came back as the CEO. And he was not only speaking to the customers, but he was also appealing to the employees of Apple. If you remember, by then, Apple was on a rapid decline. They've lost their competitive edge. And I think the first ad was called The Crazy Ones, which is very emotional, inspiring. I've certainly recalled it many, many times throughout my career. It was phenomenal because he never spoke about the product. The product was not discussed at all. And the unspoken message was, if these creative geniuses and artists were alive, if they were using a computer, that would be Mac, is the message he was trying to communicate, which is the crux of marketing, Liz, right? That's what it used to be. It was about talking to the customers and highlighting what their important problems were, and making their lives better. That's what it used to be. I have personally led, and Narissa and I work together as well. We've all led or be part of multiple marketing transformation programs. And most of them, not all of them, most of them end up being technology projects, either moving away from a platform or moving into a platform. And we sort of lose the sight of the crux of marketing, and the technology cycle takes over. And I really feel for the marketers out there. I would say for the past 2 decades, they've been on this, I call it a treadmill of automation and optimization, right? Moving from one platform to another marketing automation programs, as well as think about the optimization side, right? Which is they had to do from print to digital, and then SEO optimization, then optimize it for mobile, social. Now, the latest one is optimizing for Gen AI. So they're sort of in this loop, which kind of gives them less and lesser time to really focus on the customers and what marketing is really about. Narissa, what do you think?
Yeah, thanks, Max. I think, it's noise, right? It's buzzwords, it's getting onto the bandwagon. Other people are doing this, so we need to do it. There's pressure, right? We all feel that pressure of our friends, our peers, our frenemies are doing it, so we need to too. So, I just want to say that we have to be really thoughtful to clear the noise, right? And so I think a lot about how do we help marketeers and marketing reclaim its true purpose. Like, it's an unknown fact. I am not a marketeer, but my postgraduate studies was international marketing, right? And nobody would believe that if I told them. But so I have a lot of emotional attachment to the role of a marketeer, right? The creativity, the bold ideas. Their purpose is to create these meaningful connections. It's all about the golden threads of humanity, right? And bringing all of that together. And so the technology needs to stay in the background, right? And it needs to be there to serve a task and a purpose. I think what happens is we've got so much complexity today. In my role, lots of people come to me, oh, I really like this tool. And the other person says, well, I like this tool. And they're kind of doing the same thing. And then suddenly everyone's doing slightly different things. And what you end up with is this nuance of, patchworking everything together, disconnected systems, data that's not coming back to the architecture and the owner, which is yourselves and us in our world. And we start to duplicate efforts, right? And so then the marketer is distracted, right? They're super distracted around what's really important, around what they do best, which is strategic thinking and storytelling. So I don't think it's more dashboards, more MarTech solutions. It's getting really uncomfortable with the acknowledgement that we have to prioritize clean and well-structured first-party data. And if you prioritize that above everything else, and Booker's agreeing with me, you can then move forward with the solutions that help you get more efficient. But if you don't address the data first, I think that's where we're being told, right? The wall's being pulled over our eyes a bit to say, well, this solution and that solution will help you with this. But honestly, if you peel back all those layers, addressing the data and the structure of data is, in my opinion, at the heart of what you need to prioritize your efforts upon.
So,
No,
a show of reactions, how many people are feeling and living and breathing this right now? Because I certainly do. I almost feel cathartic as you spoke to it. It sort of brought my blood pressure down. Anyone feeling this in their organizations today?
there's a fatigue, isn't it? There's a fatigue of automation that's going on. Narissa, you were doing some research on the number of MarTech tools that have sort of exploded. Do you want to share? It's gone astronomical now, isn't it?
Yeah. So just some key stats for everyone to think about. And where we're coming from here in terms of how we're thinking about this conversation with you all today is we have empathy, right? We want to empower the marketeers in our industry to just be good at what they're really good at, and being those creative souls. And so, here's some stats that we found extremely interesting. So in 2025, there are over 15,000 MarTech tools, which is an increase of over 9% from last year. About 62% of marketeers use more tools than 2 years ago. Only 33% of your entire tech stack is fully utilized. That's a third. That's 1 in 3 of those components. 24% of CMOs report customer loss due to MarTech errors.
Mm.
And the last one here, just around the overview, and we'll talk about the roles and skills evolution a bit later, but there's in the marketplace, about 35% of marketeers are actively job hunting as well.
That's actually really scary. And so thinking about the tools, right? All the tools they're using and not actually using them to their full capacity. Think of the spend we have within our budgets, right? That's a big deal too. So as marketers, we're constantly justifying spend. New tech not fully enabled, not fully integrated, isn't helping us here at all.
No, and I was looking at the numbers, Liz. There's about, take a wild guess how many emails go out every day. Daily number of emails. Take a wild guess.
Come off mute, guys. Share what you think.
Don't ask
I'm looking at Ed.
No,
I think
Max, you just nailed what I was thinking. We are bombarded. I mean, I think about trying to get share of voice above the roar. Like all of you, do you know how many emails I get, texts, all the different platforms, messages just hitting me? And then I get turned off by brands that hit me too much. It's like I bought something from you a month ago and you're trying to talk to me 6, 7 times a week. What do you think? I'm gonna just a pile of money. I'm just gonna, I don't know. But
No,
the
what's
frequency is insane.
You're absolutely right. There's about 360 billion emails that go out every day. 360 billion emails. So the number of tools are going up. The amount of communication we do is going up. And Narissa, to your point about the number of specialist roles is going up. And I think there is this inflection point in marketing. And look at the other side, Ed, as you said, the consumers who are receiving all these noise and signals just coming at them from all these channels. Because the more we make it easier to send out emails, the more you make it easier to send out messages, the customers, the audience are the one that's getting impacted by it. And the unsubs are going up. Budget is going up and the return on investment is going down consistently. And people are sort of pushed to trying all kind of tactics to compensate for it.
You know, what's interesting with that too is you think about the Freeman research they came out talking about what the next generation is looking for. Certainly isn't more emails. It's about personalization, that customized journey. I think about my kids who are teenagers. They don't even know how to check email half the time. I have to remind them. So we have to also think about ourselves as the next generation of marketers is how do we reach customers at the right time with the right cadence as a whole. So Narissa, Max, what are we doing? Like, where do we go? And let's dive into how do agents play a role with this? And maybe can you explain what we mean when we say agent marketing?
Good, Narissa.
Okay, so when we think about, our focus here today is really on the human side of marketing, right? And then the role that the agents, right, which are really, think of them as your team members supporting, let's call it the mundane part of what the jobs are that you do. So in agentic marketing, the purpose that they bring is to listen, learn, understand, and then also start to build knowledge through the repetitiveness of the tasks, right? So the more that you get them to do, whether it's around segmentation, whether it's around workflowing, architecturing, scheduling, orchestration of content, any of the tasks that you think could be automated, the agents are there to be positioned in a prime way to take that knowledge and start to execute. But they don't just execute, they continue to learn, right? And so what's really important there is that you can train an agent to do anything, right? We're seeing successful use of agent marketing within customer service. I think that's a really strong pillar. It makes complete sense. On that tier 1 line of support, we're seeing really strong use cases around agentic marketing for prospecting of sales funnels as well. So allowing teams to, the constant challenge is we need more resources, right? We're overcapacity. We don't have the time. We can't spend the quality where we need to, whether you're a marketeer, a salesperson, an editorial person, it's the same challenge. So within the marketing pipeline, we can start to use these agents to fill up that space, right? And they can take on any persona of tasks that we need them to complete. What we don't want them to do is to fulfill the role of transparency, connection, context, right? And that is where it's really important that the marketeer maintains their subject matter expertise to fulfill that objective.
So I
Max?
like where we're going in this, because we're not saying agentic solutions replace marketers. They're replacing repeatable tasks that are sort of, we call it in Clarion, the $1 tasks. I want to get rid of those, and I want to focus my humans on the value added pieces. And I think that's exactly some of the pieces that you're talking about, Narissa. Max, what would you add to this?
Yeah, no, it's a very important point that Narissa made. Let me build on it. A word of caution around AI tools at the moment, because there's plenty of them. If you had 15,000 platforms, you're going to have millions of these tools out there because it's so easy to produce. So word of caution, what's happening is because these tools are so easier to implement, we're sort of falling into the same trap of, let me use this for copy editing, let me use this for personalization. And we're kind of adding more toolkit to our belt, right? So what Narissa's point is, well, don't fall in the trap and actually use this opportunity to train these agents to do the job that are super relevant for you. So if we take a step back, right? So what is the formula here? In a perfect marketing team, if they exist, what are the 4 things that are necessary? The right skill set. They have a good marketing process. And number 3 is what Narissa was saying, your first party data. You have your clear audience database foundation that exists. And the 4th one is your marketing automation tool. But none of us have the opportunity to do them in coordination with each other. They're always out of sync. Either you're focusing on your data project that's an out of sync with your marketing automation, or you're rolling out your marketing automation and then trying to upgrade the skill set. We never get to do this 4 things together. So the approach with AI isn't to just add more tools. You actually have these agents that can learn your process, understand your data, and do the automation, all 3. But without the subject matter expertise, which is the marketers, these agents are useless. But that is not what is being promised out there, right? The tools that are coming out of the woodwork are, look, this is going to make it easier for you. They are very generic, non-differentiating tool. The way you can get AI to work for you is your subject matter expert, the marketers out there on the call, is your subject matter experts become super useful. The irony here is, right, the past 2 decades, we've been teaching people how to use technology. And I think the shift now is people should teach technology how to do the task so that they can focus on what doesn't change with marketing, which is your storytelling, your brand proposition, your understanding of customer. They don't change regardless of how you market changes.
You sort of spoke to this, Max, but how is agentic marketing different than marketing automation? Let's just get clarity on that, because I think we talk about those things sort of in tandem, but give us the clarity here.
Yeah, excellent question. And I think it's not just marketing automation. The same thing applies for sales, finance. The past, let's say 2 decades, I've been using that as a bookend. All these tools that we rolled out, most of the SaaS platforms out there, they are not data rich, right? So most of the tools that come in, you're implementing the tool and then you're loading the data. And they don't learn from the data. They don't learn from the insight. So, and particularly in marketing, contrast to sales, where the tools have been consolidated around Salesforce or one of those tools in marketing, the consolidation never happened. So an average marketer is dealing with 30 to 50 different tools to tie it together. And instead of going down the SaaS path and adding more AI tools, what we're really saying is, what is an AI agent? It can plan, it can understand your goal, and it has memory, and it can execute set of tasks with direction. So imagine if you can train those agents to do the things that work for you. Now you can have a group of agents list that actually work as your team member and do those things, as opposed to buying a generic solution and trying to make it work for you.
And it's so relevant now because, I grew up in marketing coming through the industry, but what we're asking marketers to do is complex. And I feel like in many organizations, everything drops on a marketer's desk. So trying to balance priority, trying to drive commercial outcomes, trying to drive insights, you can't do it all. And I do think there's been a shift of how we're structuring teams and what we're expecting. So, Narissa, maybe talk a little bit about team and structure and how you look at how you bring agentic into a marketing organization.
Yeah, so I was looking at when I was doing the research, and this was super interesting to me, the shift in skills and marketing skills between 2020 and 2025. So, back in the COVID days, we were very hot on, titles like content strategy and writing, social media marketing, SEO, email marketing, a little bit of data analytics, a lot of CRM. Fast forward to looking more into 2025, the words that are really coming up, data analytics stays there, is very high and strong. Persuasion, collaboration, adaptability, predictive analytics, trust and transparency in AI. That's like a core fundamental skill of a marketeer in 2025. Customer experience, of course. And actually, marketing automation, to Max's earlier point, is in decline because you don't need the automation when you've got the agents as your team members, right? They're doing all of that work for you. So when we think about our organization and how we bring the skill sets, right, that we need into the marketing teams to support the use of agentic AI. So what we've really focused on specifically at Clarion is the transitioning, I would say, and Liz can correct me if she doesn't agree, from being sales and marketing driven to being product driven, right? So we as an organization are very focused on the customer and the products that we're putting in their hands and the problems we're trying to solve. And that has been a huge shift for us. It's easy to say it, but it takes a lot of time and energy and focus on our organizational design to transition to that model where we've obviously got a strong suite of product managers, but also thinking about product marketing as well and how we communicate about products in a way that customers can connect and resonate with. Once you start to think about product at the heart of everything you do, how it communicates with your customer, the voice of the customer, the infusion of customer sentiment to how you bring products to market, then you can start to introduce the skill sets that tie around that. So, the product managers that we have are very technical, they're very process oriented, they're very structured in the way that they think about the solutions we're bringing to customers. And then this enables them to really think about the journey. And once you've defined the journey, and in the events world, I know I say that and I think, oh, well, that's so easy. But if any of you have ever tried to map customer journeys for an events organization, it's extremely complex. And, there's, this edge case and that edge case. But if you can come up with some core customer journeys, this will then allow you to say, okay, from a sentiment standpoint, there's a massive issue here. Let's say it's registration, right? We're finding that in registration, we're losing conversions month over month for these specific reasons, right? The form's too long, there's not social login, we can't make it one-click registration. So we identify the problems, and that's something that the marketeers and the product teams are very good at doing. Then the agent can come in, and whether you work with a partner to develop this, whether you look for something that's off the shelf, whether you look to build that internally, really depends on your own resources. But you've done all of the work to identify where things are broken. And then it's a matter of prioritizing in that customer journey what's going to have the biggest impact. So for us, registration, of course, is a very high focus area for us. Like, how do we make it faster, easier? How do we take away all of the legwork for all of our customers? Those are the things that we really think about. I'll stop for a second, Liz, because I felt like you were going to say
I
something.
was just going to add, we have all different sizes of organizations here. So you may
Mhm.
not have huge teams who can really dive into all problems, but I think it's important to understand where to start. So if you're a smaller team, give us some advice on how would you start looking at bringing agentic into your business?
Let me start, and Nursa,
Yeah.
feel free to chime in. Particularly if I sort of zoom into the event side, Liz, I'm sure there are other sectors on the call as well. But if you sort of think about your small to medium-sized event organizer, for all the things Narissa was outlining, that's where marketing has gotten so complex because there are a number of things for you to piece it together. But I would look at, pre-event, how can we use the agentic approach in terms of more personalized promotions, right? I think we can do a much better job than what we do today. Back to the 360 billion email, that's being sent out. What can we do? Especially you attended last year, and I know these things about you, and how can you make it relevant and personalized for the visitor to come into the event? So pre-event, what can they do? At event, I would actually take a very human approach. And Liz, you are a marketer. If you run into someone in the hallway and at a show, what would you ask them to genuinely help them, right? That's what the marketers need to think about, rather than getting lost in the tools and saying, how can we understand what they're looking for and use these agents to help them, whether that's a concierge tool or FAQ tool and things like that. So what can we do at the event ultimately to help the attendees and visitors? And then, post event, whether that is, Narissa, we're working together on this, whether for the sponsors, scoring the leads, analyzing the lead, what kind of follow-up we can do. And instead of looking at them as distinct activities, how do you build these agents with a partner to stitch the pieces together so that pre-event, making sure that they feel relevant coming into the event, how do we help solve their problem during the event? And then what takeaways can we offer post the event?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to do it too, and I think we have to be okay with testing. So one of the things that we talk about a lot is it doesn't have to be perfect, but we want to try. And I believe that organizations that are really getting more comfortable with how AI and agentic marketing will work will be the ones who will win in the end. So you're not building it as tool sets, you're building it as part of strategy and then kind of walking through how do you empower your teams then to work with those agents and actually action those insights. So, Narissa, could you give us a real life example, an easy example that anyone could walk away and say, we tried an agent here, and here's how we approached it?
Yeah, of course. So I think, especially for smaller organizers, but I think for any size organization, lean into that customer journey and then look for something that's repetitive, right? Which tasks are extremely repetitive and how could you automate that? I want to give a nod once more to the data hygiene and having that great structure for attendee and exhibitor data and how that can allow you to unlock the full potential in that cycle pre, during, and post. It can't be understated. And then if you're going to measure this, because to Liz's point, if it's a pilot or something you want to take back to your leadership team, you can use specific KPIs like time saved or conversion improvements to justify how you scale it. So thinking, following Max's vein, thread of thought here. So pre-event, couple of examples. How could you automate attendee communications? Now, we don't mean the really emotive, thought-provoking types of communications. Think about how AI agents could support confirmation emails, reminders, post-event thank yous, the types of automation of emails that can be done very easily, where you could personalize with attendee names and session choices, but you can keep it very simple. So those are your, operational type marketing communications. You could also have some voice agents for FAQs. So those are very, very easy to set up. Most of you have probably developed an FAQ that you've built over time through all of the work you've done at events on site, pre, post, and pre, during, and post. So if you've got that Bible of FAQs, you're feeding the machine. The agents just need information. They need intelligence. They need recordings of transcripts of calls. They need documentation. That's how they get energized and that's how they build their brains. So with that information, you could use that to deploy Customer support, that first line triage where you're solving very mundane, very easy problems that don't require humans to intervene, right? So allowing your staff to be more involved in the very deliberate and important task that they have to undertake. Especially think about like out of hours, right? If you've got international audiences or you've got time zones, you can have an agent covering those lines, whether through voice or text or email, all times of the day. So suddenly your response rate is getting really high. We also just, I want to talk to this because somebody actually took the time to write and give us this feedback. So we've been experimenting with an agent that intercepts forms being completed. So when they complete a form saying, I'd love to be a sponsor at this next event, when that form is submitted, the agent calls them within 2 minutes and says, Hey, Daniel, so glad that you reached out regarding our event. We know that you're very interested in sponsoring. We'd love to get some more information to you, and they can share prospectuses. And their ultimate goal is to schedule a meeting for the human salesperson to take over and have that consultative selling experience. Now, in that particular example, the customer actually wrote to us and said, I'm so impressed that within 2 minutes of filling in a form, I've got a call and I have a meeting scheduled. And they took the time to write that. And I thought that was, just a really great testament to that sense of you've got my back, you're looking out for me, you're being responsive in how you communicate. So that was a real use case
No,
there.
it's
And
amazing
then,
that too,
yeah,
is it's speed to lead, right? Like if people want to make a decision and my gosh, they want to buy something, imagine serving that up right there for them and fulfilling that need. It's unbelievable. I will say just on that example that Narissa talked about, we did a short pilot a couple weeks. We had a six-figure deal. Like it's 6 figures of deals come through. It's sort of an easy way to pick up some low-hanging fruit, but also support your sales. So there is definitely a use case there. Sorry, Narissa,
yeah.
keep going.
No, just a couple more examples. I'm trying to just make this like if you're writing something down, I feel like I've accomplished something successful. So a couple of other areas that we're really leaning into AI is around content tagging and recommendations. So, AI can very easily run automatic tag sessions for session recordings, speaker bios, any additional content that you create for pre, during, or post event. That's a very easy task for an AI agent to do as well. We can also have the agent do recommendations based on, the data there is obviously your session content and the priority that the customer has given to their preferences, the topics. But again, if that data is structured, this is very easy to fulfill. And just two more examples. One is as you're getting into the lead up to your event, using AI to generate some of your more day-to-day social posts, right? So we're using AI not for things that are super emotive and important, but if we're just doing reminders, we're just doing outputs of what's happening, what's to come, things to remember, how to create the hashtags, right? The AI agents can do that in nanoseconds. And then using the agents to schedule as well. So having the agents lined up to automate all of your postings across platforms at the optimal times. And to what Max was saying earlier, it's not automation because they're learning. They're using the data to inform them to say, oh, when we posted at 8 a.m. on Tuesday afternoon, we got a much better response rate than we did at 4 p.m. on Thursday afternoon. So let's continue with that optimization. So those are just some ways that you can use the AI agents.
Every time we say agents, I keep picturing like this band of people standing behind us, helping us out. So
Oompa
curious,
loompas.
I wish we had that actually. Curious to hear from folks in the call today. How are you using agents? Anybody feel like sharing? Oh
I
man,
can.
all
This
right, go
is
ahead.
this is Eric Smith. I own a company called Redwood Art Group, and we produce art fairs during Art Basel, Miami, New York, etc. It's about a $5 million company, and we're using AI to generate leads for the sales team. We just started this process where an agent goes out. We rated 200 pieces of art and they've put those into the agent, and the agent is now learning what's good art and what's bad art, and feeding us leads to the reps. And then the next process is for the customer. We're going to do kind of a swipe left, swipe right deal where all of the exhibitors have their work into a catalog, and then the catalog is sent out to our ticket holders and, trade buyers prior to the show, and they can kind of swipe left and swipe right, and then it feeds them a map on where those booths are so they can follow, and go directly to the pieces of art they want to see. It's
That's
pretty,
amazing. So you're taking it to personalization too on site, which is fantastic.
yeah, we are. I'm kind of
Now,
more excited about that part than the lead generation part, actually.
don't tell the sales team that. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's fun.
Yeah.
Eric, did you build yourself or are you using an off-the-shelf solution?
There was another seminar that I was on with Paul Schuster, and I just called him up after the seminar and said, "Hey, what would this cost to, or let me just teach me more about AI." And so he did about an hour interview of me and of my company, and we came up with these two things to start with. And we'll see how they go. And it wasn't expensive, around 20 grand to do the first build. And we'll see what happens. He's still working on it. We haven't even launched it yet. It starts in about 2 weeks. So,
Ah, that's fantastic. We'd love to hear as you go how it goes. And I think that's an important piece is these are not super expensive products or ways to use an agent. So it's about kind of getting your use case and like Narissa and Max said, your problem statement and then figuring out what to do with it. Anybody else have an opportunity they want to share? Okay, so I have a couple questions for you guys as we go forward. So let's talk about build, borrow, buy. Like, what is the approach we should be considering? And I know everyone's doing it a little bit differently, but could you give us some guidance here? Because I think getting into it is important, but like, how and where do you start would be really helpful to understand.
Yeah, very good question. We've always contemplated that, around every automation program that we do, don't we? Liz, to your point earlier, one of the client actually referred to agents as, think of them as well-trained interns. You have army of them who understand your brand, who understand your context, and they're super trained that they can follow up on all this, and they're also learning on the job. So that is a good way to look at it because they are doing decisioning on your behalf as well. I would look at it two ways. One is, well, build if you have a lot of time and money, mainly because at the beginning of the year, they said there's an year of agents, but it's going to be decade of agents. We're very much at the early stage of what the agents could do, and it's going to continually improve, which means the technology is moving so fast. So build it if you're taking a long-term investment approach to go down the path because things are moving so fast. You could obviously outsource it to a partner and then somebody who's doing that. That's a secondary approach. It depends on the partner and the credibility they have and your relationship with them. The third one is actually what was it Eric who was saying that, Eric Smith, which is find a partner whose expertise is in agents and slash marketing, and then co-design it with them. Bring your problem, bring your context, and then co-design it with them because it's not one and done. Because how the agents learn and how they continue to improve, that's a continuous process, which is where I think co-designing it with a partner, at least in my mind, that is certainly a more appropriate way to go if you don't have infinite budget.
Yeah, I think it's great. And thinking about if we could remove repetitive tasks, it actually gives us time to think about what's possible. And I think that's an important conversation point with this as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Narissa, anything to add?
Yeah, I would just, the only thing I would add, I would agree with Max, is you want to be almost ruthless, right, in how you think about the data as well. So, I keep coming back to that, but it's extremely important. So the co-partnership to co-create a solution, right? That's how, we're obviously working with Max in a similar way to that, where we have a problem, we know how we want to structure our data, and we're working together to solve that. I think that the really important piece for event organizers, right, is because often we have to rely on others to provide us with tools, solutions, right? It's more challenging to get the funding, as others have said, to fulfill your own prophecy. So you want to make sure that your internal resources are these SMEs, right, that truly understand that the problem you're trying to solve, what you're trying to grow as an organization, where you're trying to create opportunities, and that they can work very systematically and methodically with those partners to create those solutions. So I think sometimes that is missing, right? That SME to be that bridge between whoever is helping you build and what you're trying to accomplish internally.
And sometimes SMEs can live in the partnerships that you're working with, right? We don't always have to have those in our organizations.
Yeah.
So, guys, what would you say would be an important point if people on the call today want to bring agentic marketing to their leadership? What should you be ready to go into the C-suite with to get this over the line and sold?
How did you convince Liz, Narissa?
So, well,
She didn't have to
so
convince me too much, but go ahead.
I think taking the time, actually taking the time, if partnership is the way that you're moving forward, taking the time to really know that you found the right partner is extremely important. Like I follow my gut, right? I'm a very much gut instinct person. So if I have a connection and a relationship with any of these partners, I know we can be successful. And I think that the few that we're working with, specifically around agentic marketing, have been so invested in helping Clarion specifically be successful that it's made it such a fortuitous and fun process, right? So that is really important to me, is finding the right partner if that's the path you're taking. And being really specific and small in how you start. So problem statement, solution, impact, KPIs. And it doesn't have to be, 10 KPIs, it can be 2 or 3, and keep it very specific. So if your goal is to support agentic solutions to create more click-through rates, right? You want to have a specific campaign, execution, impact, solution, and that measurement, right? So keep it very specific for your case study and then take that back. And then the last thing I'll say is, as an event organizer, you've got lots of customers. So that buy-in internally from your commercial leaders, from other members of the leadership team, even from your finance team, is just so important, because if you can bring everybody along on the journey, that sometimes is half the battle.
Yeah, and I would just add the other thing is, it's okay. This is a steal from Jesse Cole. He keynoted for us from Savannah Bananas today, but he said, build for one, start with building for one, and then build for all. And I think that's part of it too, is sometimes these solutions can't be a one size fits, right? And you can't do everything. But if you find your group or find your case you want to work with, to your point, Narissa, you've got a very defined universe of the how, the measurements of success, and it's controlled. And I think it's less risky that way, in totality.
Yeah, and the cost of automation is coming down dramatically, Liz, to your point. So, which is why, it is tempting to do a lot of internal use cases, but I would actually advocate do more on the customer side. The lead one was a great example, or the phone call that you're talking about, Nurse, a great example in context, what value add we can do to our customers, and you're just going to get those quick wins very rapidly.
Quick wins matter too, right? Because then you sell the success of what it's happening. You have to get the organization behind you.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask if there's any questions from the group. If not, I'm going to go to one last one for Narissa and Max. Anybody have any questions? Feel free to pop off of mute if you do, or type it in the chat, and I'm happy to ask it. And Anna, we're going to have to figure out what SISO going to do with agentic marketing now. We've got some leadership here that we need to incorporate. Okay. Oh, here's a good one. What is something you learned from a failure?
How long do you have? It's interesting where traditional automation is you build it once. Let me talk very slowly because it's a very important point. You build it once and then you deploy it multiple times. That's how SaaS works, right? With agents, because the cost of automation is so low, you can actually build for specific use cases like Liz was talking about. So quick prototypes could be deceiving, but actually making it live. So I call it 0 to 30 is much faster to go. And then 30 to 60, which is actually landing it to work on a day-to-day operation, is a lot harder. That's what we learned. Our original hypothesis when we did a campaign agent, whatever we believed in, midway through, we had to change all our hypotheses because when it actually works in a real situation, our hypotheses were proven wrong, which was the point of doing those things. So I'll give you an example, personalization. We did a campaign email agent, and what we learned was, if I know enough about Liz, if I address to her and saying, hey, Liz, you're CEO of Clarion Events, North America, here's why it's relevant for you. That was less effective than if I did it persona-based and say CEOs like you would prefer these content. That was far more effective than trying to do a hyper-personalization because most of them can sniff out it was written by AI.
I think that's a great one. Narissa, any failures you learned from that you want to bring forward?
Yeah, so I think with content creation, right, we do use agentic solutions to support summaries, creating bullets, just taking very rich editorial articles and doing some of those more menial tasks, creating the metadata for the search algorithms and such. And I will say that it was a very emotional process that I went in thinking, oh, this is going to make the editors' lives so much easier. It's going to speed up what they can do in a day, make their efficiency much better. But what I didn't really account for, so not so much a failure, but a learning and a moment to pause, is that writers and marketeers are writers, right? They're very emotionally attached to the content that they create and the stories that they're bringing to their audiences. And you have to respect that and you have to move a little bit on eggshells because you're trying to build trust and transparency in how you're using AI to support more effective content creation. So it's not taking over the content creation, it's doing the menial tasks, right? The bullet summaries, the metadata, et cetera. But the editors, they needed time to really feel that they owned that process of creating the prompts, of educating the agents, and really being in control. So that to me was a huge learning process, and that was why I mentioned the buy-in piece, like letting the customers, internal customers who you're building for, feel that they have control of this process, because that builds transparency, it fosters more collaboration, and they have less trepidation about AI because there is a lot of that still.
It's going back to what you both said about the human side, right? AI is a tool, but the human side and winning the hearts and minds of your own team is a big part of this as well. So good insights there. All right, so last one for you. So if you had one parting bit of advice for our friends here who are going to start to use agentic marketing or up what they're doing already, what would it be? Uh-oh, who's going
Right.
first? Who wants to go first? Narissa, go first. You're off mute.
Okay. So the one piece of advice, make sure that you have a data expert that can really help you create a solid customer journey, the friction points in that journey that need addressing, and have the ability to work creatively and holistically and efficiently with the partner or the developer or whoever you're doing this to build the solution that supports your data story.
Awesome. Okay. Oh, you're on mute, Max.
Sorry.
That's
My
okay.
point would be, marketing has variables and constant, as in there are a lot of things that have changed over the past few decades. There are things that have not changed. So let the people focus on the constant and let the agents focus on the variables.
I love it. I think it's great. Well, thank you both for joining today. I think, getting all of us a little bit more comfortable, it's not going away, but how do you actually work it into ways of working within your organization and think about how it empowers your team to better serve your customers is huge. So appreciate your time and your insights, and look forward to seeing you all very soon at another SISO event. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you, Les.
Bye. Thank you.
Sarah.
Bye.
Bye.